and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to do the book recommendations tag, which is not something that you frequently see on my channel because most book tags are just really boring. And this one has been circulating around booktube recently, and the questions in it are different, they are interesting and unusual, and I just wanted to do this. The first one is a book that you tell people is your favorite, and I found this question so fascinating because it often is a case that there is a distinction between the books that we love privately and the books that we love publicly. For a variety of reasons, not always because we are ashamed of our favorites. I would love to approach this question as if a stranger asked me what's my favorite book. In that case, I would go for something popular because I would want that book to be a conversation starter. Let's say a date asked me what's my favorite book, or a new acquaintance. If I didn't know their favorite genre, I would still clear from genre books, from fantasy, from romance. I would go for something that is widely known, something that has an adaptation perhaps, or something that is a good conversation starter even if the person had not read the book yet or doesn't know much about it. And I think from the books that I've read and loved, it's definitely The Secret History by Donna Tartt. It is a good book club book because of all the themes that are part of it, which means it's a good book to discuss one-on-one too. And at the same time, it represents my tastes very well. It's a dark academia book. It's about gray morality. It's about people going to extremes for what they want. And that is definitely a very me type of media. Even if the person doesn't know about The Secret History, which could be possible, but if they read, they probably know. It's still a good book to talk about. On the flip side, the next prompt is a book that is your guilty pleasure. So I guess a book that I'm not willing to admit I love for a variety of reasons. Often this question implies a favorite from a so-called cringy genre, and I really don't like that. I think a lot of people try to push back on it but still participate in it. So I do not want to participate. I'm going to transform this question and tell you about a book that I'm not ashamed to love, but I don't think is particularly well written. I love it though still because of other reasons. It is books really. It's All for the Game series by Nora Sakavic. Now this is a series with a huge fan base and they might throw tomatoes on me, but I'm willing to admit when a thing that I love is flawed in a way. The series had a lot of potential and I think it improved book by book, but the premise itself is somewhat unrealistic, and as a person who is very sensitive to cringe, I cringed a lot. I would say that at least the 50% of the first book is unbearable to a certain degree for a person that shares similar sensitivity to cringe. There are some logic gaps in it as well, and in that way the series reminds me of a lot of early 2000s new adult romances. On the other side, all these negatives are actually the reason why the series is so addicting, because I do believe that a person who's been brought up with fan fiction is obsessed with the extremes. And it's much easier to fall in love with characters that experience a huge volume of drama and trauma because we empathize with them. And Nora Sakavic utilizes this a lot in the series. By the end of it, you're so obsessed with the group that you just cannot fight it. All for the Game series is a self-pub series that is part sports, part mafia romance, and it's about a 20-something guy who's actually the son of a mafia boss. He runs off with his mom from the family and is tired of hiding, so he joins Palmetto State University sports team. In an act of defiance, really, he's tired of looking behind his back and expecting his father to find him and murder him. Who doesn't love an outcast? People root for the underdog all the goddamn time on reality TV even. And when you get a group of outcasts, how can you stop from loving them and rooting for them? So if you have not read the series yet, give it a chance. It's a bit dark, read the trigger warnings, but it's very entertaining, and it's definitely one of those series that sucks you in and gets a real hold on you. A book that everyone loved but I didn't is A Lot of Books. I've read a bunch of different books that are extremely popular on booktube and book talk, and I didn't love them, which is honestly such a pedestrian experience. You cannot love everything. But a book that I've read fairly recently in the past year and hated every single second that I've spent with it is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This book is aimless, the character arcs are non-existent, it's just a very boring read, it's extremely meh. And when people say that they find it relatable, I genuinely don't understand it. What is the part that you find relatable? Being a mopey shit or getting into an affair with a married dude? I highly doubt that so many people have affairs with married dudes. The protagonist is not just unlikable, she is a paper cutout of a person. She is a personification of envy. There's nothing else to her. It just doesn't fit into my mind how this book became so popular. The book I read the fastest is a hard question for me because I don't prioritize reading books as fast as possible. I'm not the marathon type of reader. It's just not a particularly enjoyable experience for me, and as I've got older, I realized I just don't have time for that. The perfect reading session for me is an hour or a 2-hour session that I'm not distracted from. Nowadays, I just have too much on my mind and I get distracted a lot because I have to do other things, and it seems like a waste of time sitting down to read a book. I think it's an experience a lot of people can relate to, but when I get an uninterrupted hour of reading, it's a blessing. So reading a book as fast as possible isn't part of the equation. I think I've read The Song of Achilles pretty darn fast. Either was 2 reading sessions or 3 reading sessions, which is quite quick for me. A book that deserves more hype is every single FF romance that I read and love on this channel. I'm forever better disappointed and sad about not having an FF romance click on booktube. Just why? I wish there were more queer people on booktube that read adult romance, specifically FF romance. There are plenty of people that read romance, and I don't have any beef with them. I don't have any beef with anyone because I don't care what people read and what they enjoy, and I'm definitely not here to force books on people. I don't think you have to read a specific type of book if you're genuinely not interested in it. I'm for people reading genres that they want to read, things that they are interested in. There shouldn't be any pressure when it comes to your hobbies. I just want to find people that genuinely love FF adult romances, and I want to be in a group with them. I want to talk about those books all the time. And sadly, so far I have not found that. If you are a booktuber and you read FF adult romance and you love it and you want to talk about it, write down something in the comments. I need to find you all. So this category of books, in my opinion, is underhyped. And from the ones that I've read recently, no, I'm not going to mention Requiem for Immortals again, you're safe. Instead, I'm going to talk about Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner, which is a very surprising discovery. Thanks to one of the viewers, I wouldn't have ever picked it up because I hated Meryl Wilsner's debut. I thought it was extremely boring, it lacked chemistry, it was so excruciatingly slow, and I just didn't see the romantic connection between the heroines. And this one has all the romantic and sexual connection you need. It's so fun, it's so juicy, it's so dramatic. It is about a uni student that goes to a bar, picks up an older woman, and realizes after their hookup that it's the mom of her best friend on campus. This is so good. This is so scandalous and I love it. Give me more risque stuff in FF romances because a lot of them are very safe and I just think we deserve. I love that Meryl Wilsner sat down and decided that she's just going to write a book about a hot MILF, and I ate it up. I cannot wait to see what she's going to come up with next. The next prompt is a book that is becoming a movie or a TV show, and I want to mention a series, a second book of which I read recently. It's The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. Now, I don't know what's happening with that adaptation because I remember that the rights were bought 3 or 2 years ago, definitely more than 2, and we haven't heard about it since. Book business is definitely much faster than movie and TV business, so it could be in development or it could have been buried already. We just don't know. If you know anything about the fate of that adaptation, tell me in the comments down below because I really want to know. I need that show. I think it's gonna be so good. This series is so up my alley because it's a family saga and that family is a mafia family, so you know it's a fun time for me, at least. The book that I've read the most must be Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. I think I've read it at least 3 times. It's ironic because Tipping the Velvet is my favorite and I always say that, but I've read Tipping the Velvet twice. I need to read it again to even it out. Fingersmith is the book from Sarah Waters that I would recommend to non-queer people because the romantic subplot, while important, is not the hook that keeps you reading. It's the suspense element that draws you in. Sarah Waters put so much effort in this book and it shows. The structure is incredible. The twist is one of the best that I've read in literature overall. I love it. If you've never experienced discovering a queerness, moving from a smaller town to a bigger town, being a baby dyke and trying to fit yourself into the world, I don't think that Tipping the Velvet is for you. Tipping the Velvet was written for the community and Fingersmith was written to snatch prizes. Both are really good books, but I gravitate to Tipping the Velvet. A book from a genre that I don't read is Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. I don't read self-help, not because I think it's useless, although there is a stray thought in my mind that it's a bit useless. It's just because I forget what was in it after I read it. I never implement anything from self-help books. I'm just not the type of person, but Come As You Are is different, I think. It's part research, part self-help, and I think I loved it because it's on a topic that is of particular interest for me. It's a book about demystifying sexuality. If you ever had questions about your body, why it reacts to some things and doesn't to others, why it acts the way it acts, basically, I think it's a good book to read. It definitely answered a lot of my questions and introduced me to concepts I've never thought about. I just think it's a very helpful book for any adult out there. A book that deserves all the hype it gets is definitely The House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I have not seen many bad reviews of this book. I've never seen a bad review of this book at all, I think. It's just delightful, and I think we need more delightful stuff in our life. The next prompt is difficult. It's a book that I usually recommend when people ask for a recommendation. It's hard because I recommend different things all the time because if I know the person, I can figure out a book from the ones that I've read that they're going to enjoy. Let me just mention a book that I recommended recently to a friend and they really enjoyed. It's Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. She was in a bit of a rut and needed something adventurous, in my opinion, so I decided that I'm going to recommend her Neverwhere. It's not very challenging, it's a fun read, it's adventurous. The characters are quite fun too. I just think it's a perfect book for a person that maybe doesn't read a lot. They probably heard about Neil Gaiman too, so they would be less apprehensive. The writing style is very easy to get into, so It's win-win-win. A book that has my favorite characters again is a lot of them, and I noticed that it's mostly fantasy books because we just get more insight into the characters usually. There are more fandoms for fantasy books than for romance books or mystery books. I have to say Six of Crows duology, obviously. I have to say the Rebecca Warrenhorse Black Sun series, the Greenbone saga as well. I just love characters in fantasy books usually. A book I wish I could live in is definitely some kind of a fantasy book as well, because if we're taking contemporary, we already live in that world. I don't want to choose one that is dangerous for me to live in, and also I don't want to choose one that is actively in a conflict. I have to go with Mega Water worlds, I think, because it has place for magical people and non-magical people. If you're not magical, you can also participate somewhat in the magical world. There's always an opportunity for immortality in those kinds of worlds that blend easily with the regular human world. I love that. Contemporary fantasy has been my favorite genre for a bit, and I would love to live in that world. I think it's fascinating. I think it's cool. A book that I thought I would hate but I ended up loving. Nothing comes to me immediately. A book that I didn't have many expectations for is definitely Monday's Not Coming. I already talked about it on my channel. It was such a surprise. The twist at the end is incredible. I've never been more shocked, other than maybe watching Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio. So I think that's all you need to know. The book itself is a young adult thriller, and I don't expect a lot from young adult thrillers and mysteries. They are mostly very safe usually. This book is not safe. It's not safe at all. A book that made me cry is definitely I'm Glad My Mom Died, because it was devastating. I think it's a very common reaction to this book. It is a memoir about a very complicated relationship between a mother and a daughter. Janet McCurdy poured her all into this book. I cried, I laughed, then I cried again, then I was in hysterics. She is also very funny, which balances out the devastation. The actual story is still pretty difficult to handle. And we arrived at the last prompt, which is what book you wish you could read for the first time again. And I also don't ever think about books in that way. So my answer would be there's no book that I wish I could read for the first time again, because with every reread I notice something new in a story and I appreciate it in a different way. I'm one of those people that are not concerned about spoilers, because hearing about spoilers, unless it is a thriller or a mystery, doesn't diminish my enjoyment. So this were all the questions of the tag. If you enjoyed it and you are a booktuber, bookstagrammer, booktalker, do it yourself. I'm going to link the original video down below. If you just want to take one of the questions or a few of the questions and talk about your answer in the comments down below, please do, because I would like to hear about the books that you'd pick. On this note, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with another one, but until then,